Immersion is kind of weird, because in 2025, the best compliment you can give a collection of interactive pixels is that it doesn't feel like, gasp, a video game. And this feeling is usually thanks to these three simple syllables: EEE-MUR-SHUN. And what I've dubbed through professional/unprofessional analysis, the four shuns, the pillars that deliver this feeling. Players love to say a game feels immersive, that it feels alive. And that's the big clue here, is that they say feel, not that it is, because immersion is more than just mirroring realism. If it was, well, we have real life for that, and honestly, that's enough right now. Do not watch the news. Maybe that's why Robert Downey Jr. once said, you never go full realism, because go too far and you trade immersion for boredom. It's like this invisible line that's really up to each individual player. For some, this is immersive, but this is boring. This is immersive, but this is boring. And this is... I don't know what this is. It's a bizarre balancing act, but how far is too far? So to explore this art of making players forget they're holding a controller in their hands, let's dive into the four horsemen of the immersion apocalypse. Our first shun is how a game delivers its information to the player. Think about all the menus and HUD information a player has to juggle, and how these cluttered screens put a divider between you and the action. It's the most obvious signpost that you are playing a game. Assassin's Creed, I am looking at you. Well, apparently, post-apocalyptic games specialise in solving this problem. Bethesda iconically present your in-game menus via the screen of your Pip-Boy. Here you'll find your map, your inventory, and your quests all on your character's wrists. But in the end, these are just still clunky menus just presented via an in-game item. Metro Exodus takes this interaction one step further. When Anton is feeling lost, he whips out his physical map, or when he needs to craft ammo, he flings his backpack down. Yeah, these are still just reinvented menus, but the difference with Exodus is the game doesn't pause when you do so. While Fallout 4 locks you away in safety, Exodus you're completely vulnerable to... yeah, that. And sorry to Fallout 4, while I love you, this isn't the only element that others do better. Such as this tracking mission in the glowing sea. Here you follow the radio signal of the Enclave's homing beacon, which is really cool. But then this beacon simply presents itself as one more HUD element on your screen. Compare that to Stalker 2, where GSC Game World reinvent the HUD counter into your anomaly scanner, which your character will physically flip out and follow, with the intensity of the sound telling you how close you are to discovering the source of the anomaly. That said, the Best in Class award for building your HUD into the game world has to go to Dead Space and Visceral Games. Your health bar, your ammo, it's all built into Isaac's suit and weapons. Character dialogue is presented through holograms that project out of your suit without a break in gameplay. And even the storefront menu is a holographic display, which is honestly Ubisoft's dream storefront probably. In Dead Space, rather than exiting to a separate screen for your map, you stay in the game with yet another hologram displayed in front of you in real time, so you can head to your next objective. And this is a big problem for building immersion in a game, right? Because objective markers arguably feel like you're a fish on a hook, and they don't really compare to the feeling of organically discovering something for yourself. Well, one of my favourite ways developers have solved this problem is through in-game radio. Let's play a game of Would You Rather. Would you A, look at a map littered with every single side quest and activity imaginable, or 2, be interrupted by a cutscene where an NPC lets you know a side quest is nearby, or D, simply overhear a conversation where you naturally move through the game world? God, I hope you chose D, because this is what happens throughout Arkham Knight. Batman listens in to the radio chatter of the thugs, the police choppers, and even the Riddler himself. Not only does this remind you of the lawless chaos happening below you as you glide across the rain-soaked Gotham skyline, but it also allows you to discover nearby hostage situations or fire breakouts for yourself. These radio conversations take many forms in GTA, Fallout 4, Cyberpunk, each bringing the world around you to life. But while in-game radios are fun, they aren't when you're forced to pause and listen. Metal Gear Solid's iconic codec calls carry its world building and narrative, but when 50% of your entire game is cutscenes and codec calls, the immersion wears off, and the Kojima indulgence sets in. Which is probably why MGS5 took a backseated approach to its calls, allowing Snake to make codec calls without breaking the gameplay. Here you can either point your interscope at anything of interest and call in for bite-sized info from Ocelot, or you can further pick up clues and lore by overhearing soldier conversations. In-game lore is another way information can help draw players into this world. By adding history and a timeline of events, it makes the game world so much more than pixels and sound files. It makes it a real place. And without this type of lore, gaming experiences can be completely different. The first time I rescued Sarah Dorset at the very beginning of Cyberpunk, I didn't bother reading the many shards scattered throughout the cracked-in apartment, but on a second playthrough, I stopped and I read all about the cybernetic implants, the fall of Arasaka Tower, and how Trauma Team is a pay-for-treatment medical/military team, making the moment when Trauma Team do arrive so much richer and more impactful by knowing their full backstory and purpose. Reading, however, can be a double-edged adventurer's sword, because too much and players simply switch off. I love all the findable books in The Witcher and Skyrim, but I'm gonna be honest, after a while my small, nano-sized brain simply switches off and starts skipping them. But then again, I never skip reading Arthur's Diary, and TBH, it's probably because it's basically a picture book, which is why in-game literature works best when it builds on what's already in the game, rather than being crucial to advancement. As delivering immersive information is only rewarding when you play within the limits of the player's attention. Oh, look, a puppy! Okay, confession. I've been playing way too much AC Shadows, and despite Ubisoft's commitment to history, I would never say that AC's worlds feel like living and breathing places. And unfortunately, Shadows is very much the same. Its lack of interaction and emergent events makes it feel like a simulation, which I guess does stay true to the Animus. One thing it does nail is animation. Nawe will lose her footing if you try and run on ice. Yasuke will warm his hands when you're near a fire. When you enter a building, your character instantly removes their shoes, honouring the Japanese tradition of no footwear indoors. None of this happens at the click of a button, it just happens. It doesn't ask you to change your gameplay in any way, just focus on the task at hand, mainly putting a blade into bad guys. But that lack of choice does make its world building pretty underappreciated in my opinion anyway. Take the NPCs for instance. Unlike a Bethesda open world, you just can't strike up a conversation with everyone you see. But through animation, Ubisoft gives every single NPC their own story, but only for those who pay attention. They take on small tasks, perform puppet shows, and train their sword fighting skills. And even kids will have play fights. In fact, just walking down the street as Yasuke and seeing each NPC react in awe at your size never gets old. Key here is again, none of these animations interrupt the gameplay, unlike the cockpit animation in Starfield. For me, I'm a weird sicko who loves this simple ritual of your character taking their seat at the controls before taking off. And when you get up, oh, that subtle hand touching the dash. What a rush. This animation can be fun when you're in a full role-playing mode, but after the 400th time, it's enough to want to fushra da your own eyeballs, which is probably why Bethesda gave players the choice to simply skip it. But what about when you can't skip the interaction? Well, this brings us to the daddy of immersive animations, Red Dead Redemption 2, which amazingly features 300,000 unique animations. I mean, there's even an animation cycle for bodies decomposing in real time. This isn't important, I just thought it was cool. But many never even saw a quarter of them because Arthur's slow, clumsy, tank-like movement was enough to make them literally walk away. Not in the game, but physically. I'm the same height as Arthur at 6'1", and I can tell you, controlling myself in the real world feels a hell of a lot more lighter than controlling the tank that is Arthur Morgan. It's made worse by the fact that when in camp, you're restricted to walking or passive-aggressive walking. Red Dead prioritizes realism, but the reality is realism is repetitive. Every player knows the OCD pain of individually looting each fallen body after a firefight, or cleaning out a house. Open a drawer, pick up the item, close the drawer, open the next drawer. Ugh. Gah. Okay, I'm awake. If you're in the right mindset, RDR2 is amazing, but when you're not, it's painfully tedious. Compare this level of detail to Breath of the Wild, which features the same moments, but uses a visual shorthand to skip the tedium. An arrow, a puff of smoke, and voila, a fresh piece of beef. Tap, boom, it's in your inventory. Liken that to Arthur, lining up his shot, gunning down the deer, removing his knife, skinning the animal, finally placing the carcass on the back of your horse. Sorry. The gruesome ritual is either something you relish, or it's the reason you took up being a vegetarian. One game is prioritizing fun, and the other is prioritizing immersion. One isn't better than the other. It's rather a reminder that this line between fun and immersion can't be balanced without some compromises. The art of this next shun is that when done right, you don't even notice it at all. Tech limitations mean eventually every game will need to tether areas or cutscenes together, and nothing ruins immersion more than the dreaded fade to black. Hiding these loading screens is often the difference between a good game and a great one. Think about how you never questioned Cyberpunk's elevators as it loaded the next area up, or how Spider-Man cuts to short subway animations while fast traveling across the map, or more recently how Star Wars Outlaws made traveling between between space and a planet's surface, as simple as flying through the atmosphere. All these and more offer creative solutions far better than resorting to the lazy fade to black. Oh no, no, no! Which brings us to a final shun, and it's the big one, interaction. Interaction is often the difference between a game being a backdrop and the game being a world you can live in. Because it's no longer a set piece, it's now something you can actively participate in. The Elder Scrolls world of interactable objects that are able to be picked up, thrown, or just piled up will stay there for your entire playthrough. Well, in Witcher 3, if you drop an item, it's always represented the same way and will eventually be cleared from the map, so yeah. Skyrim's level of high interaction is totally ignorable, however, but this ability sets the rules for its world. Because immersion isn't just about being interactive, it's also about being reactive. Guards that comment on your armor, travelers on the road that attack giants when they get too close, and the crowds that gather after you've saved them from a dragon attack. Yeah, these games are about freedom, but the immersion comes from living under the world's rules, as well as being punished when you break them. Take out a pedestrian in Cyberpunk, and the NCPD will be on your tail. Kill an officer, and backup will arrive. Take them out, and MaxTac will show up to end you. Compare this to entering a house in Assassin's Creed. Yeah, I know which one's more reactive for me. No, it's fine, don't get up. The more the world reacts to your decisions, the more immersed you'll often become. And this isn't just for the big stuff, it also applies to the smaller interactions. In Starfield, if you give your companion weapons or outfits, they'll choose which ones they prefer, give them food to hold on to, they'll even eat it when they're running low on health. And then there's the other side where the world asks the player to react to it. In AC, your horse is a tool, but in RDR2, your horse is basically an extension of Arthur. Because like him, if you fail to feed, clean, and rest them, their health and stamina will deplete, leading to your loyal steed turning on you and even bucking you off entirely. I've never done it, but you can actually kill your horse from neglect alone. But of course, everything has a limit, with gaming's infamous encumbrance effect either being loved or more often than not, loathed by players. Think about something as simple as sleeping in a video game and the difference it makes in your decisions. In Dragon's Dogma 2, your character and pawn's health diminishes as they expel their stamina, meaning by the time the threat of darkness arrives and the enemy's strength ramps up, your party is at their most vulnerable, making it essential to reach your campsite on time. And when you do, it's relieving, not just because your party can finally rest, but because you're thankful you even remembered to pack that elite camping kit in the first place, making sleep an essential part of the game loop. Despite making a shift to RPG mechanics, Assassin's Creed's never really let you sleep, which I think kind of really hurts the immersion. I'm nearing 100 hours in Shadows, and poor Narway hasn't slept once. Much like Ubisoft treat their employees, I guess. Okay, I'm joking. Things like sharpening a sword, cooking a meal, petting a cat, these tasks are oftentimes optional and meaningless. But meaningless tasks in games are actually really important because they encourage and allow players to craft and tell their own stories. Be honest, every GTA player has at some point tried to drive the speed limit, avoid collisions, and just play as a responsible civilian, only to, stuff it up, of course. Hell, the heart of Persona 5 is really just letting yourself enjoy the chill side activities of Shinjuku. Red Dead Redemption 2's genius is its open chapters that allow you to just leave the story behind while you disappear into the wilderness and live off the land. For me, I love waking early and just reenacting a slow, weary morning, enjoying a fresh coffee and the view of the sunrise, before jumping on my steed and heading off into the world. This isn't a gameplay loop, it's not a side quest, it's just my own little ritual that I do for fun. And that's the missing shun in this analysis, because the best way to ensure a game brings the immersion is to bring the fun. Fun is basically a get-out-of-jail-free card because when a game is fun, the immersion ultimately takes care of itself. Power Wash Simulator, Hollow Knight, Stardew Valley. You won't find these games on any best immersive games ever lists, but ask the players and they'll tell you how much these games pulled them in and never let them go. Breath of the Wild with its intricate systemic game design came out of nowhere to put its open world counterparts to shame. And it did it all without hyper-realistic graphics or expensive mocap performances. It just brought the fun and reclaimed Hyrule's place as an immersive world. Starfield delivered a 1,000-planet-wide universe that realistically simulates the galaxies around you, with true-to-life star types, unique day durations and gravity pressures for each planet, realistically recreated eclipses, and thriving fauna ecosystems. But although it delivered what planets would actually be like to visit, many players couldn't find the fun. But for me and others at the No Sodium Starfield Reddit, who do love that game, we created our own by embracing its sandbox universe. And that's the one thing that game devs can't control. They can't control how much the player is willing to invest and meet the developers in the middle. No matter how funny a comedian is, they can't make you laugh if you aren't in the mood to. And that's okay. I'm not always in the mood for Red Dead Redemption, but when I am, it's always amazing. What I'm saying is, your mindset becomes this self-fulfilling legacy. If I boot up a game and believe that its world is lifeless and dead, then it is. Or if I dive into a game wanting it to feel alive, then it also is. Developers can double down on the 4 shuns, balance the levels of engagement, deliver immersive sound set to a grand soundtrack. But if you, the player, doesn't bring themselves to this interactive mess of pixels and sound files, no matter how many unique animations or number of planets they cram into it, these worlds will only ever feel like a video game. Because the rest is up to you. Hey, if anyone's still here, then huge thank you. To the original subs, drop a comment, because it's honestly awesome seeing your guys' takes on these vids. And if you're new, think about hanging around. Massive thank you guys. You really are amazing. I appreciate you so much. Bye.